just can't seem to grow up. I said I just can't seem to grow up. But you know what? What? I don't think I want to. All right, now follow me here. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Retro Fun Time. I'm your host, Roberto Villegas, and we are continuing our look at the Zelda series with today's game. Some consider this the worst game in the entire series, while others just consider it a different take on the whole, world of Hyrule. Me personally, I actually like this game. Regardless of that mixed bag reception, it is one of the few direct sequels in this wacky, zany timeline known as The Legend of Zelda. That's right, people. I'm talking about Zelda II, The Adventures of Link.
Zelda II, The Adventures of Link. Released just 11 months after its predecessor for the Famicom Disk System, the game is a direct sequel that continues Link's adventures. While trying to wake the sleeping Princess Zelda, followers of Ganon are pursuing Link in hopes of killing him and using his blood to resurrect their defeated master from his ashes. Jesus, when the hell was any of this mentioned? It's not like you get any of this from playing the game. In fact, this attempt to flesh out the Zelda universe begins a long tradition of convoluted timelines and alternate worlds that would continue for the rest of the series. Another big change was the controversial move from the original overhead camera style to a 2D side-scrolling platformer. Though Zelda 2 felt much different from the first and was extremely difficult, the game is still considered one of the top titles for the NES and has sold 4.38 million copies worldwide.
Alright, well, let's get to this game. Let's get to playing some little Zelda 2 FDS style. And this time I understand how this works. I am not confused by the Famicom Disk System. God, we're really playing a lot of Famicom Disk System games. It's kind of weird how many titles started off as FDS games. Of course, Legend of Zelda did. Zelda 2 did. Oh, look at that. Oh, the Japanese. Other games start off as its own little FDS game. Castlevania series, Castlevania 1 and 2, were both Famicom Disk System games, along with Metroid as well. It's interesting how many games would start off as FDS. It's kind of amazing. I've been doing a lot more research on the Famicom Disk System of late. So much so that even Squaresoft... hold on a second. I don't know if this is a translation or if that's truly actually what the FDS had. Because that's so weird. Anyways, what's interesting about the Famicom Disk System is the fact of the matter that... I guess we could start. Where'd we go? Oh, interesting. They didn't even bother putting the other figures there. They must want to save a lot of memory. All right, well, let's try this again. But yeah, no, a lot of games start off as Famicom Disk System games. It's very strange. Squaresoft apparently had a full division dedicated to it. Almost tanked their company, for Lord's sakes. Change side B. Good. Let's change to side B. God, well, now that I understand what it... See, why was that in English? Never mind. Huh. I figured they'd use the synth channel for that. Wow, that loaded up really fast. Whoa. Well, that's weird. Wait, you're supposed to have gone down in one hit. I mean, not. I might be mistaken. Wow, this is so weird. This is only strange for me because I've been playing a lot more Zelda 2. This is my first time playing the Famicom Disk version of the game. There are a couple differences I'm already noticing. For starters, it almost feels a little bit more sluggish. I don't know if that's the case, really, if I'm just imagining things. Let's talk to some NPCs. Okay. That's weird. So it looks like they use the synth channel to... here, let's get some healed up. It looks like they used the synth channel this time to... Wow. That's even worse. It looks like they used the sync channel on the Famicom Disk System to do the sound effects of the people talking, which is a very weird way of doing it. I figured that they would have done something else with it. One thing I do want to note about this game, it is a 2D side-scroller, as stated in the bumper video. When Miyamoto made the game, he actually hired an entirely new team to do it. Interesting enough, the actual director of this game would go on and make Super Mario Bros. 2, and he actually started off making Ice Climbers, which is really weird. So I wonder if for him it was basically a 2D side-scroller one, because keep in mind, this thing came out 11 months after the first game. So it almost feels like, to me, that this was a rushed production job. So, you know, it's very, very strange as to how quickly this all turned out. So, let's say we get to the first temple already. Let's just blitz out of here. So yeah, Miyamoto wanted to make this drastically different from the first one and things like that. So I wonder if a lot of the time was just spent on, you know, getting to that. To me, it makes a lot of sense now in hindsight. God, look at those things. They look so weird. It's like not even descriptive at all. So for me, I wonder if this is not so much as the oddball out when it comes to Zelda, but more the kind of first time that I think it was like Tegura something or another. God damn it! Well, that was weird. I think it was more for him the first time he would go on to make an actual side-scrolling game that he'd be kind of known for, or sort of as his sort of design principle. So that's really my theory in this whole matter, is the fact that he did it this way. So let's try to beat this temple really quickly, because things happen. It is very interesting, the fact that this game looks a lot different from that. There's one thing I did notice playing. It feels slower for some reason. I don't know. I can only imagine what people thought when they played this game. I mean, because Hyrule Fantasy did such a great job and did such it was such a launch title, like supreme when it came to the disc system, that I wonder what people thought when this game came out, just because of how different it is. I mean, you're playing a side-scroller. Things are just completely and utterly different. But it's still a damn good game. Like, I know a lot of people hate on this game because it's so different. But, I mean, you know, this was like the first kind of title. This was sort of the first idea behind it. And, you know, so what? It's different than the first one. Heck, at this point, there wasn't a Zelda franchise. This was like 11 months. I almost believe this is almost a cash grab. Just because of the nature of the FDS, that, you know, Nintendo was really banking on that being, oh, interesting. That's weird. There wasn't prices. You'll see the differences for sure in the NES version, but so I mean, Nintendo was really banking on their Famicom Disk System to work and kind of be the new future of games, mainly because it was so much cheaper to develop on the FDS. Like we talked before, ROMs are expensive, memory was precious back then. So if you could figure out a way to just make things, you know, a lot cheaper to develop for and produce, you know, Nintendo took a shot in the wind every time. So for them, this was kind of their way of doing things. Like I said, I think it was a brilliant concept. I really liked the Famicom Disk System in hindsight. I know why it failed. I understand. I know why it didn't do so hot in sorry, I think I remember where I didn't go. Man, I'm getting my ass handed to me. I know why it failed, though. I mean, I understand that it had too many issues, but it was such a brilliant concept of sort of on-demand gaming in the early days that I think it kind of, whoa, that was weird. Well, that's all the time we have actually for this game. So we're actually going to take a little break and now talk about the original Zelda 2, the one on the NES. But in the meantime, while I kind of set things up and get everything kind of working here, I kept talking about the Famicom Disk System a lot, didn't I? So why don't you watch this video explaining what the heck the Famicom Disk System is. These days, on-demand gaming is prevalent. Just launch Steam, download, and you're playing some Team Fortress 2. Awesome. Let's go back in time. It's 1986 in Japan. Cartridge gaming is all the rage, but there isn't a way to save your progress beyond a password. Plus, man, those carts are pricey. If only there was a cheaper way to make these games. Enter the Famicom Disk System. Released on February 21st, 1986, the FDS gave players in Japan a way to not only buy games cheaper for the Famicom, but also the ability to save their progress. Numerous titles that would go on to become pillars of the Nintendo would get their starts here as FDS titles, such as Castlevania and Metroid. The device itself added a few features for developers. Giving developers 112 kilobytes of space to play with, the device also featured 32 kilobytes of RAM for programs and 8 kilobytes for tile and sprite data. It also added some sound hardware that featured a primitive wavetable synthesis and FM synthesis. With the feature to span multiple sides and disks, it gave developers a cheaper way to make more expansive games. The most interesting part is that the disk system was an early example of games on demand. Gamers could go buy blank discs and visit various kiosks in Japan. Just pop in the disc, choose your game, and you're playing the latest title. And since the discs were rewritable, you would always be able to get the latest games. It was ahead of its time with the ability to buy games in an on-demand fashion. As awesome as this sounded, the system suffered from numerous problems, such as belt failures or disk issues. In the end, it wasn't as popular as Nintendo had hoped. The legacy this system add-on leaves is mostly in games, but I think the games on-demand concept is something to remember. It shows that even in the early days, on-demand gaming is something Nintendo wanted to get working. It wouldn't be until the rise of the internet that Nintendo, and others, would finally get it right. Okay, well let's get to play some Zelda 2 on the NES. Wow, this looks totally different. We're actually starting a little bit ahead of time, and I actually happen to do a little bit of off-camera gameplay trickery. That's why you see Link here is all leveled up and all badass, and we're far to the point. Mainly because I want to give you guys a little bit more, I didn't want to give you guys the same damn beginning kind of thing like last time. God damn, it doesn't matter. This game's too freaking hard. It doesn't matter, really. So, as you saw in the past when we did get some abilities, we got Shield, for example. We now got a couple more magic stuff. That's one thing I should probably mention. It did not only did Zelda 2 bring in the concept of the side-scrolling thing, which was never done again, sadly. Because honestly, I would love to see another one. I really would. I think it would actually be fine. To be honest, I know not people would like that, but I think it'd be interesting to see it. What it did bring, what legacy it did leave was, of course, magic. That would be in a ton of different Zelda games. At least specifically the next game we're going to talk about, Link to the Past, but we'll get into that more later. But the whole spell concept was great. You had different sort of branching spells. It also, if you notice, there's level up mechanics too, which I've been not explaining too much about, sadly. I probably should go into a little bit more in depth. In Zelda 2, you actually can level up. As you notice, Link has different sort of bars in terms of experience and stuff like that. We have a life level, a magic level, and an attack level. And right now I'm maxed out at 8. Attack obviously is very simple. It sort of explains how strong your attacks are. Magic is sort of how much magic power your spells take up. And of course, health is not so much how much health you have, but how much each health unit represents in terms of hits and whatnot. So let's actually start getting our asses let's get ourselves to the other temple already. Since there's really no town to go to. There is on the other side of the bridge, but let's not bother. Let's just get to the temple here. That's what you guys want to see. You want to see me get my ass handed to me in this game. There's a couple interesting things I do want to note about the background, and this is something I noticed that. So let me try to get into another fight sequence. One thing I want you to note is the clouds in the background. They're very simple sort of sprites in general, but they're so effective. I mean, look, it's essentially 2 colors. For those who have no idea, the Nintendo actually has a kind of their background palettes, each kind of, I think it's like 8x8 square of pixels can have 1 color palette. And if you notice, and each color palette's 4 colors. So let's take this little cloud right there as sort of an example. That's only 2 colors out of the palette. In fact, I think this entire background is just 1 palette of 1, 2, white, 3, yeah, maybe like 4 colors, and it might be just 2 palettes, which is a very effective use of memory. And it was something that I was blown away by, kind of thinking as to how much memory was actually used to do certain things. It's something so amazing. Again, only because if you start to think about the Nintendo and how memory was done and how sort of things were kept very, very lean code, it's very insane to kind of look back and go, holy crap, they kept this in a almost minuscule amount, even to the point where so it was, they eked out as much things as they could with this whole system. And something I didn't mention before, the temples are even 1 palette. The solid background color you see there, that doesn't count for a palette color, to be honest. But if you notice here's a great thing. Now this is a simple thing to catch really quick, and it's something that you wouldn't catch unless you noticed it right off the bat. And the big thing is the fact that is 1 background texture. That's 1 single background texture. That's 1 single background palette. Even the black is part of the palette. Remember, it's 4 colors per palette. And it's insane. Now, how do they get that whole little thing up there moving stuff? That's actually a sprite, so keep that in mind. Link here is a sprite. That skeleton's a sprite. Actually, Link is technically 2 sprites along with that skeleton. That little slime thing is a sprite. That head's a sprite. And so basically the shot goes, we have 2 colors for the background, 2 colors for the foreground kind of color there, and the red as the actual solid color background. I get to get some of the keys. So it's very interesting the fact that they really, really cut down on things. They still got the effect down, and I would not have caught this, as a kid, because I didn't know too much about the Nintendo architecture. But just looking at it now, as a guy that understands what goes into actually making these games now, they did a fantastic job of just doing something very simply. Just essentially have this, just literally changing it to a darker color makes it different, and it's so effective. And it's really amazing when you start, if you start looking at games of yesteryear and start, study the way they did the art and design, how effective just small little things are. I think they're sometimes far more effective than some of the bigger games of now. So it was a freaking brilliant idea. I thought it was fantastic, and it's such an effective use of memory that I wanted to point it out before we left this game, because I think, god damn it, this son of a bitch. There we go. I think that's the legacy to leave is the idea behind just the fact that there's all this kind of thing going on. I think it's brilliant. I love it's one of those, again, small things that you just notice as you kind of get more in development of things. God damn it. I also noticed the scrub effect is on that one too, and we obviously since we do not have the Famicom channel to help us out, our death sounds are rendered through the square channels and all that fun jazz. God damn it. Alright. Come on. God. Yes, this game is extremely difficult. It's still a fun game though. As hard as it is, it's not a bad. Like the issues it has are merely on a are essentially kind of almost rough issues. I think the big issue the game suffers from is that it feels that there are certain things they could have done differently. I think ultimately what happened is that it wasn't so much that this game was bad, because it's not bad. It's a great game. I think what it is that people of now understand what Zelda is. Like, people that, of my age who have seen Zelda go through the NES, to the Super Nintendo, to the GameCube, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and all of those sort of things, understand what Zelda is as a franchise and can now see it as a whole and wonder, why is this the only side-scroller one? Whereas people then, it was literally 11 months before this game came out in Japan, by the way. It would be like a year for us because they just had to kind of fix some code issues, I guess. But it was a pretty quick turnaround. And again, it wasn't a franchise at that point. It was like, well, the Hyrule Fantasy did good, let's make a sequel. You know, that's how it works sometimes. And so I wonder if, and there it is, and that's the death. So I wonder if ultimately we could have done a better job. Well, that is all the time we have for this game. So, you know, wait for a moment right now, and actually I'm going to give my final summation on Zelda II, The Adventures of Link. So what's my final take on Zelda II? Well, in the end, it's a very mixed bag game. It's extremely difficult, but ultimately, it's not a bad game. The thing to keep in mind is that when this game came out, Zelda was not what we knew it to be today. It wasn't the franchise it is today. It was just a hit FDS game that demanded a sequel. Perhaps it needed some more time in development, but it did bring concepts that would follow future games, such as the addition of magic. I think what happened is that gamers were put off by the side-scrolling nature, but looking at history, who knew what Zelda was going to be? Miyamoto wanted a drastically different game, and he got one, in both music and design. Regardless of all the issues with this game, it's actually a great platformer. The controls are tight, jumping and attacking is fluid. If this was any other franchise, I'm certain players wouldn't have complained. It's just not what they felt Zelda should be. And Nintendo heard these complaints. In our next episode, we will conclude our look at the Zelda games with the only game for the Super Nintendo, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Thanks for watching this week's show. Of course, you can join the discussion at our website, CosmicRadio.TV/RetroFunTime. Or you can just subscribe to us right here on YouTube at YouTube.com/CosmicRadio.TV. If you happen to like what we're doing or have a suggestion for a game, hit us up on Twitter at CosmicRadio.TV. Just make sure to use hashtag RetroFunTime. So until next time, remember, it's not art unless we prove it to be. Take care. Jesus Christ, Natalie, you scared the crap out of me. What's up?
Listen!
Look, I already told you I'm not doing Zelda 64. Because I can't capture it. Look, even in emulation it's tricky. With my current rig, I just can't do it. Now, please, it's 3 in the goddamn morning. I've got work at 7. Let me go back to sleep. Look, I just can't capture it. I'd be doing it such a disservice. Look, I know, it's not that I don't want to play the game. I love the game. It's one of the best Zeldas out there. But look, if I captured it with my current rig now, it would be an insult to the game. Well, there is that crowdfunding thing I was telling you about. You remember last night at Kirby Lane? The whole get all the funds for my productions thing? Yeah, exactly that. So look, if I get the funds for that, for sure I'll do Zelda 64, but it's up to these people. So if you want Zelda 64, ask them. I want to go back to sleep.
Hey! Listen!